Hello, this is Terry Britton, and I just wanted to share with you a little technique that helps recover really bland, gray day, two-dimensional, flat, unsaturated pictures like this one using just a filter up here they call MimicHDR, but we're going to use it in a special way. And one more layer that I'm going to apply a hard light to increase the saturation some. That the saturation is, a little bit compromised by the Mimic HDR thing. But, and we may do some other things too, but the big deal is I wanted to show you how you can adjust the light components versus the dark components of the Mimic HDR, which uses a strong sharpening part to it. Okay? So let's go ahead. I've already taken this and unlocked it, so let's drag it down here and make a new layer. And I'm going to call this darken. And Mimic HDR. There we go. And let's go ahead and apply the Mimic HDR filter to it. And there we go. You can see it's darkened the sky. It's made the water have more definition. Let's compare that to the original. See? And it's added some contrast, a little more three-dimensionality, but that effect's kind of damaged by the fact that the light parts of the grass, especially in the foreground, are overdone. It's an overkill. It's too much sharpening apparently going on here, and in fact the grass in the foreground looks like it has icicles in it or something. So we're going to take care of that. So what I'm going to take is this darken Mimic HDR, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this blending mode, which I got to from this little icon down here, and I'm going to go to darken. And now we keep the sky, the darkened sky, and the better contrast of the water. You see, as you can see, and yet it's not affecting the grass at all. We're going to take a copy of this though, since it already has the Mimic HDR filter applied to it. And this one I'm going to call lighten. Lighten Mimic HDR. Oh, I don't need the word copy in there. And this one we're going to actually set to lighten. So let's scroll down here to lighten. And now we have the lightening effect, but we can get rid of that over strength of it by turning down the opacity. So you see, you were seeing it the same way it was before we did anything. But now, the fact that I can change the opacity of the light component lets me do quite a bit of adjustment to that grass so it doesn't look so unnatural. Okay? Now, in my opinion, the result of doing this has hurt some of the saturation of the green of the original because it lightened it up a little bit with too much of that sharpening effect. In fact, I probably will lower that a little bit more. There we go. So let's go ahead and add another copy of this. And this time I'm not going to apply the Mimic HDR filter. I'm just going to change its blending mode to hard light. And as you can see, it does quite a bit to make the greens much deeper green, and it saturates the reds. Everything is more saturated. A little bit too, probably. So I'm going to pull it back just a bit. Pull it back to about 60 or so. There we have it. So now we have some three-dimensionality to this picture that wasn't there before. It's still a little bit dark. I may want to flatten these layers and work on it some more with curves and stuff like that. But meanwhile, I want to save these layers before I go doing any flattening. So let's go ahead and save it. And we'll call it this HDR blending modes. And I don't want to save it as a JPEG. I want to save it as a PXD, a layered Pixlr image. Okay? And it's going to tell me it's working down here, telling me how big the file is going to be. And I'm going to save this to my computer. These larger images, this is a full-size image that I'm working on, 3264 by 2448 pixels. So it's a fairly large file. It's 79 megs. So let's save it to my computer. And I'm just going to put it in the same folder that it came from. There we go. And now, with the layers saved, I feel safe to go ahead to layers, and I believe it's layers. Oh, I always have to search. There it is, flatten image. So now we're going to just flatten this thing into a solid, and now it's 1. I'm going to make a copy of that, and I'm going to apply a curve to the copy. The reason I'm doing that is just in case I hate it and I want to go back, or that I want to, or I can also use the opacity tool. Oh, there we go. It's under adjustments. To change the intensity of whatever I do. So I can overkill a little bit on curves and then pull it back with the opacity. So there's curves. Bring it up. And let's see what happens if I just increase the gamma, which is the center. This is the equivalent of the center slider in the levels control. And look at that. It really brightens it up quite a bit. And these are still a little bit dark. I think I'll bring up some of these real darks. And don't want to do that too much, because I don't. The more you flatten things, the less contrast you have. Contrast works by steepening the curve. So I'm going to try to keep this a little bit steeper by pulling my highlights a little bit higher, since there aren't very many highlights. I don't want to blow out my clouds, though. So, maybe I won't pull this. I'll leave whatever highlights were already in the clouds, and instead push up elsewhere. There we go. And that's just to make it steeper here. Now, wherever you have things steeper, that's where you'll have more contrast. Wherever you have things more horizontal is where you'll have less contrast. So we've increased the contrast of the very darks in order to bring this out inside here, inside these weeds. And so there you have it. Now do a before and after. And if I feel like I've overdone it, I still have the freedom to go ahead and adjust the opacity and pull it back in case I feel like I've made it a little bit too much. Okay, so there you have it. There's a couple of techniques that I hope you'll find useful. It may be just to be the beginnings of getting something going on. It's a little odd because using the MimicHDR, you're applying sharpening at the same time as you're doing a whole bunch of other things, as far as contrast and stuff like that. So it's actually doing many, many moves all at once. But if you're just trying to get a very quick move to get a quick result, and you got a very bland picture and you got to brighten it up, well, then heck, this is a very nice, quick way to do it instead of using a whole lot of different maneuvers, using various layers and curves, and in order to achieve the contrast to different sections. But we'll also cover the techniques that you would do things like that, using layer masks and stuff like that to make our curves only affect certain portions of the picture. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed this, though, and check out all of the videos that I'll have in this Pixlr tutorial section. Take care.